Welcome to Bilbao. The amazing building behind me is the Guggenheim Museum. It was opened 15 years ago, it cost about $100 million and it really put Bilbao on the map. The bike we're here to ride isn't quite as revolutionary as that, but it's pretty special. It's a new version of Ducati's Multistrada 1200, complete with Skyhook suspension. The Multistrada 1200 made a huge impact when it was launched in 2010. It featured 4 riding modes selectable by the press of a button. In sport and touring you got the 8-valve V-twin's full 150 horsepower output. Urban mode gave more relaxed delivery and softer suspension. In the softer enduro mode the Multi even had some off-road ability, though it was best if someone else was paying for the damage when you dropped it. For 2013 the Multistrada is updated, with the more expensive S version now coming in 3 different models. There's a sporty Pikes Peak with red and white paint, short screen, carbon bits, Terminioni pipe and forged wheels. The Gran Turismo, kitted out for long distances with high bars, running lights and full luggage system. And the touring model, which has panniers, heated grips and centre stand, and is likely to be the most popular. All the Multis are powered by a new version of Ducati's Testa Stretta 11-degree engine, which now has twin spark plugs per cylinder, repositioned fuel injectors and a new secondary air system, all designed to improve low rev running. The Touring also gets a slightly taller and wider screen than the old 1200 S1, with a simpler method of adjustment. The headlight has LED dip beam, so main and dip can run together to make it brighter, and the ABS system is updated, so the front and rear discs are linked when you're in urban or enduro mode. But the biggest change is the adoption of Ducati's Skyhook suspension, a semi-active system developed in partnership with Sachs, who already produced a similar setup for cars.
In a conventional suspension, the damping coefficient is fixed, even where it is adjustable. Once the rider has chosen his click position, the damping is fixed during riding. In a semi-active suspension, the damping is continuously controlled by the ECU and so is continually adjusted to the better position to ensure both performance and comfort.
Time to see how it goes then, and to be reminded about just what a terrific motorbike the Multistrada is. There's just nothing else that combines the grunt and character and sheer performance of a 150 horsepower V-twin with the lightness and all-round ability of this thing. This updated Testa Strada motor's maximum torque is increased by 5%, so the Ducati's slightly more grunty than before, though I can't say I really noticed that. It is a fantastically flexible engine though, which makes the bike very easy to ride as well as quick. Most of the engine changes are designed to give a benefit at slower speeds. Ducati say it gives 10% better fuel economy when you're riding gently, though they're not claiming any improvement under hard use. When you're riding through town or just trickling through villages, the new Multistrada is just a bit more smooth and refined, thanks to the twin plug motor's injection and exhaust changes. Certainly this bike ran smoothly enough through the villages in Spain that I don't think riders would be complaining about it, as some did about the old model. One useful update is a new screen, which as well as being bigger, so giving some useful extra wind protection, can also now be raised or lowered on the move. You just squeeze and slide the adjuster with your left hand. It's a very simple invention and a very clever one. I've always found the Multistrada's wind protection surprisingly good, although I'm told this bike is better still. So there are definite benefits in straight line performance, but of course the big question about this bike is about the updated chassis with its Skyhook suspension, and that's more difficult to be sure about. The previous 1200S had Öhlins suspension front and rear, and it was just so good, especially when you could fine tune it at the press of a button, that any replacement was going to have to be outstanding just to stay at that level. The first thing to say is that the Skyhook definitely works, and works well. There's 170mm of travel at each end, which is quite a lot, but the Multistrada is so light and agile and stable that it never feels vague and bouncy like some adventure style bikes. But that said, I'm not sure that on our fairly short test ride, this Multistrada had notably better handling or ride quality than the old one. I think most of us were slightly surprised because we were expecting it to feel different, but the Ducati felt pretty much like a conventional, well set up bike. The way Skyhook works is it takes an imaginary fixed point above the bike and varies its suspension damping every 10 milliseconds or less to keep the machine on an even course. That's how in theory you can have improved comfort without compromising performance. On twisty roads like this, when I was in touring or sport mode, I occasionally wondered whether the Skyhook system was firming up the forks a fraction too much under braking, so making the bike need a little bit more effort to turn. But all the settings can be adjusted, so given a bit more time, I'm sure I could have found an ideal setup. The system's main benefit perhaps came when the Multi was on its softer urban settings, where it gave a very comfortable ride and the Skyhook reacted very quickly to firm up the forks under hard braking. It should also react well to changes in load, so when you had a pillion or luggage, which we didn't have the chance to do. So whether Skyhook gives a significant overall advantage over the old Roland setup, I'm not sure, but the Multistrada confirms that semi-active suspension does work, and I'm sure we'll be seeing it on a lot more bikes in the near future. Meanwhile, this Multistrada's rear shock gets a dual rate spring, which should make the bike better when it's loaded up with a pillion and luggage. This touring model is still on the sporty side for a long distance bike, but it is a Ducati after all. If you want a bike that's exciting as well as versatile and comfortable, there's probably still nothing better. This 1200S Touring isn't cheap, and the Pikes Peak and Gran Turismo are more expensive still. But the Multistrada was already brilliant, and this model has enough useful updates to convince me that the world's best all-round motorbike just got better still.